everybody. Good to be here. It is hump day. It is Wednesday. It is August 14th, 2024. I hope everybody's doing well out there. For those coming in and joining us now, Andre Rodriguez, good afternoon to you. Remy, what up to you? Y'all make sure to hit that like button as y'all come in. Make it easy for you. I don't go to vertical format. We're still at the horizontal format. So it's easy for you. Like, you know where to go. You know where to hit the button. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. It's right there. It's just right there. All you gotta do is hit it. Just hit it. Hit it. All right. Hit it. Hit it. Hit it. That's all you gotta do. Troy Mack. Go Spurs. I just like the hat. I like the color scheme. Not a fan of the Spurs. I'm just saying. Santiago Media, shout out to you. Afternoon to you, Serge. Hello to you, Team Batman Boxing. Hello to you, Mars Boxeo. And hello to you. And yes, hit that like button. That's all you got to do. Hit the like button. Hit that like button. So we got a few things to talk about here today. And it's been the first time. Look, my kids are still, we're not back into the swing of school until Monday. And I'll be out of town here coming up this weekend. So wanted to squeeze one in while I got it. But we will be back to putting out a lot more content starting next week when the kids are back into their swing of things for school, etc. So just letting people know. And as far as today, I wanted to talk about Vergil versus Bohachuk. What I thought about that fight, the scorecards, how they looked, etc. The landscape at 154. And also Angelo Leo shockingly knocking out. It wasn't shocking to me. To me, that wasn't much of an upset. Leo beating Venado because I felt undervalued at plus 350, plus 370, whatever I told people to bet at last Thursday or last Friday before the fight. There was value there, but for him to do it that way, good Lord, and yes, pause. Good Lord, squeeze one in. I mean, it doesn't have to be a pause, though. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be a pause, but yeah, we'll squeeze one in. Pause. Shocking how it happened. I expected Angelo Leo decision, but so you get fight of the year in the same night with knockout of the year. How often do you have that? If ever, do you ever have that? Do you ever have fight of the year and knockout of the year on the same night? And still, I go on Twitter after, scrolling through Twitter, and I still see people complaining. Still people, robbery, it's a robbery. Oh man, Vergil, he looks so flawed at Vergil. Vergil's not ready for Bud. Add Vergil to the long list of dudes not ready for Bud. He ain't ready for Bud. Is anybody ready for Bud? Nobody's ever ready for Bud. Bud should just sit in Omaha and stare at the wall because nobody's ever ready to fight him. Nobody's ever worthy of fighting him. A week and a half ago, Madrimov, he ain't ready for Bud until he was. And it was a close fight. Now Vergil is not ready. He ain't ready for Bud. He's way too hittable. So Boots should not step in the ring with Bud. Nobody's ever ready for Bud. And I'd favor Bud against all those guys, man. Look, make no mistake about it. I'm just saying, like, can you stop with the he ain't ready for Bud. Bud should just retire and not fight anybody. Because nobody's ever ready to fight the dude. Good Lord, man. Like, can we enjoy fight of the year? Can we enjoy two dudes who have great chins, who are great combination punchers, just going after each other and getting hurt, getting knocked down, getting off the canvas, fighting? And this is one of the rare fights. I don't remember another one where you had a dude hit the canvas twice in the fight and arguably win that round. In both rounds, Vergil arguably won, and I could have swore I saw this, but maybe I didn't. I could have swore I was on Twitter in between rounds 1 and 2, and I saw every unofficial scorecard have Vergil Ortiz 10-9. Vergil Ortiz wins that round. And then all of a sudden, 3 rounds later, they go to the video and a flash knockdown, and all of a sudden it flips from Vergil 10-9 to Bohachuk 10-8. And I'm like, wait a second, That was definitely a 10-8 round. Is that what everybody's saying? Now it's definitely a 10-8 round, just over a flash knockdown. It's definitely a 10-8 round. Is that what you're telling me? There's no argument for Vergil losing around 10-9, still winning the round despite getting knocked down and it being a 1-point deficit as opposed to 2. There's no argument for it. All I'm saying, man, is there was a lot of nuance in this fight. This was a great fight. And then people, you log on and you still see people complaining about stuff. It's like, good Lord, man, the scorecards were good. The scorecards were good, just like the scorecards were good for the Bud fight. The judges did a great job. The judges didn't ruin great fights. The judges didn't ruin this fight of the year candidate. It may not be the guy you wanted to win or thought won close, but it was close nonetheless. Could have went either way. And then Angelo Leo. Let's start with that. Angelo Leo knocks out Venado Lopez. Venado Lopez looked really bad in this fight. Venado Lopez, an awkward fighter, tough to time, but Angelo Leo did this. We thought that this was a tough matchup for Venado Lopez coming in. We thought that he was, as a 5-1, 5.5-1 underdog, was seriously undervalued considering the matchup here. And Angelo Leo was a guy who got his footing in the weight class. And it was only a matter of time before Venado loses a fight. You don't want to say exposed because, I mean, fellas, people lose fights when they fight. It happens. But it was only a matter of time before he loses a fight, and it happened. It happened Saturday, and it happened in brutal fashion, and it happened in brutal fashion because it didn't look like Venado was had his best game. It looked like he was figured out, and it looked like Leo was the one getting stronger as the fight went on. And he sized Venado up with that left hook, and it was just a perfect shot. And his head bounces off the canvas. And that referee, why are you still counting? Dude, you could have stopped the count at 4. You didn't have to keep counting 5, 6, 7. He does not know you're counting. They were already on the ring apron at 5, bringing out the stool, and this dude's still counting. Take his mouthpiece out. Help this dude. The dude's out. His head bounced on the canvas. If you see a dude's head bounce on the canvas and he's looking up in a daze, you stop the count. Stop the count. And that's what happened here. Should have happened here. And Venado loses the fight. And now Leo positions himself well at 126. And you want to position yourself well at 126. Why? We talked about the real monster, Naoya Inoue, at 122, who eventually, a year and a half, 2 years from now, will move up to the weight class. So you want to have yourself positioned to where you have a belt. Why do you want to do that? Because what does Naoya Inoue value? He values the same thing Usyk values, the same thing Bud values, the same thing Canelo has valued throughout his career. They value titles. They value legacy, and titles come along with the legacy, particularly as they move into a new weight class. So for when Inoue moves up to 126, you want to be the guy who's naturally bigger, who has the belt when he does move into that weight class. And Leo just has to make sure he holds on to that belt as time goes on. Shout out to you. Two of the day, good sir. Carlos, top of the day. Carlos Galvarado. Some folks being hard on Vergil. He was coming off some health issues and quick ending fights prior. We'll go straight into that right now. Your boy Canelo is using a shit ton of seasoning. If you still think he fighting benefit, and I don't. I don't. Turkey freezing out Tszyu. We'll see. Let's see. We'll see. Turkey doesn't want to work with Tim. We'll see. We'll see, fellas. Just let that develop. We'll see how that goes. More on that, the Tszyu stuff in a minute. So let's hop on to the Vergil Ortiz thing. I thought Vergil jumped out quick, and I thought Vergil looked really good. I had him winning the first 3-4 rounds against Bohachuk. And then Bohachuk did what some expected he could do in this fight. And we all knew this was going to be a tough fight. I thought over time as the rounds went on that Vergil would have more success, being that he's the quicker guy, the sharper, shorter shots. And if you look at these guys statistically, they both throw a high percentage of multiple punch combinations, not just 2-punch combinations. They're throwing 4 to 5 punch combinations, a high percentage of 4 to 5 punch combinations, fellas. Now, Bohachuk landed at a higher percentage, both total punches and power punches, but it wasn't by that much. And Vergil threw at a higher rate, but not by that much. And he threw at a higher percentage, but not that much. So what I'm saying is this was a tough fight to score. This was not anybody telling you this is an easy fight to score was not a tough fight to score. And especially when you throw on the added nuance of this is one of the rare fights in which a guy hits the canvas twice, but arguably wins both of those rounds. And let me make my pitch as to why that might be the case. As I said at the top of the show, I'm looking at unofficial scorecards throughout on Twitter after round 1, and everybody has Vergil winning that round. And then 3 rounds later, they say, nope, we went to review, flash knockdown. And Vergil gets up at like 1 or 2, right? So it wasn't effective, but it was an official knockdown. So you have to ask yourself, was that knockdown enough for you to score that a 10-8 round? Or did Vergil still win the round despite being knocked down, so then it would be a 10-9, right? And it matters when you have a close fight. And then if you look at round 8, same story, in which flash knockdown, Vergil gets right back up. And it happens, right? It's still a knockdown. Flash knockdown or now, it's still a knockdown. Bohachuk lands the shot, right? And you give him that credit. But you have a lot of people who, if there's a knockdown, they just automatically score it a 10-8. And that's fair. It's subjective, right? But why I would argue Vergil wins that round is round 8 is the round of the year, fellas. That's the round of the year. This was the fight of the year. Undoubtedly, to me, the fight of the year. Best fight I've seen all year. And on top of that, the best round and the best fight of the year. Round 8 was the round. Round 8 was the best round of the fight and the best round I've seen all year. This round was Bohachuk coming out strong, landing that flash knockdown, and then Vergil getting pissed off that it scored a knockdown, even though it should have been scored a knockdown, and say, no. I can't let this guy get the better of me. I'm going to come back and get it with interest. And he does. The second half of that round was Vergil. Like, that was some of Vergil's best work in the whole fight. He was putting a lot on those shots. He was walking through whatever Bohachuk threw. He was out punching him by a pretty sizable margin. So once again, can you score the round of the year 10-8? Yeah, you could, but do you? I ultimately had this fight a draw, scored a draw, multiple swing rounds, and I could see it going either way. It just depends on what you like, and we've talked about there being comparative rounds from round to round. Fighter A wins round 1 convincingly. Fighter B wins round 2 slightly, or doesn't win round 2, just competes better in round 2, and he gets the round based off of he looked better than he did in round 1. It doesn't necessarily mean he won the round or was a better fighter in the round. You're just comparing the two, and it happens. It's psychology. It happens. We all know it happens. I would argue in this fight as a whole, as a total, you arguably had a comparative fight. You arguably had, all right, this guy's a 4-1 favorite. All the narratives are he's going to win this fight, and they're already talking about Bud, and then you get something different. It's the same thing as Bud versus Madrimov. A lot of people aren't expecting this guy, Madrimov, to be competitive, so you have some people who scored the fight for Madrimov. Even though, by my estimation, I don't think there's a pathway to score for Madrimov. Maybe there is. We'll see what people think about that. But the same thing with Bohachuk. You had people expecting Vergil to have some resistance early, middle, but then to take over the fight. And that doesn't happen. He never separates himself from Bohachuk. And it's a close fight. So you'll have the robbery talk. Just like you had with Madrimov Bud. You'll have the robbery talk creep in, and you just say there's no robbery here. There's no robbery, fellas. It's a close fight with many subjective close rounds that could have went either way. Do you rather the guy who's consistent throughout the round? Do you rather the guy who's throwing flashier punches and fighting in spots? And I thought what Vergil did well, because you're going to hear a lot about Vergil's flaws in this fight, right? And I want you to keep in mind that these are what make for tough fights for both Bud and Vergil. Is this was their first fights at 154. This was Bud's first fight at 154 against Madrimov. Tough opponent, new weight class. And it was the same thing with Vergil here. We saw him at 156, 157, whatever it may be. But we never saw him at 154. And he's stepping in at 154 against the top 5-6 guy in the weight class. It's not an easy. It's not easy. We don't really know what guy we're going to get at 154. And one thing we saw is there's two things going on. It's number one, Bud and Vergil, their power, 100% KO percentage from Bud at welterweight and title fights. And then Vergil, 100% KO percentage at welterweight. One thing we've seen at 154 is you have a different type of fighter. You have a type of fighter who's not, and they commented on this several times throughout the fight. It's guys, Vergil is used to overwhelming guys by round 4, 5, 6, and then they start to wilter. They start to just fall apart, right? They just can't handle that type of pressure, that type of output, and it's smart pressure. And he's working his way in, and then throwing his combination punches that are tight, sharp combination punches. And he's throwing them with authority, all of them, all these punches with authority. And usually guys just fall apart. And Bohachuk did not fall apart. Bohachuk just kept coming. Pause. And what happens is, this is where I was impressed with Vergil. If you look at rounds 10, 11, 12, which he won on all three scorecards, official scorecards, and the rounds he needed those rounds. Fellas, if he only gets 2 of those 3, we got a majority draw. With one of the scorecards going the other way. If he only wins 1 of those 3, he loses the fight. But he wins all 3 rounds. He wins 9 through 12 on one of the scorecards after the 8th round, which was the round of the year. And how does he do that? He does that by doing some change-up work. And we haven't seen that from Vergil yet. Vergil is so used to the onslaught. He's so used to throwing all punches are fastballs. No off-speed punches. What he did was he finally started to listen to Robert Garcia. Robert's telling him, you got to fight smarter. You got to use your jab. You can't just go in there and throw all these punches or fastballs. You can't do it. You can't play the Randy Johnson game. Try to be Greg Maddux a little bit. Throw some change-ups. So he starts to work and trust his jab. He starts to trust his boxing ability. Bohachuk's not used to a little bit. It takes him a little time to figure it out. But we saw some layers. We saw some versatility to Vergil Ortiz's game in those championship rounds, 11 and 12, and if you add in 10 as well. And some people, I think, misread that. Some people thought that Vergil is wearing down as the fight went on. I didn't see that. I didn't see Vergil wear down. I thought Vergil's stamina was good. He was facing a guy who is naturally bigger than guys he's been facing, who has a great chin, and who is also a versatile fighter and undervalued, underappreciated fighter in Bohachuk. And he figured it out late. He thought his way through the fight late. He not only willed his way through it, he thought his way through it. And I didn't see, like, look, we could talk about, look, sometimes it's good to look vulnerable. It makes it easier for you to get fights. The perception is different. And for Bud and Vergil, people are watching them fight these fights the past 2 weekends and saying, I think I could beat that guy. Fans are looking at it and saying, these guys look beatable. They look beatable. But did anything change from these fighters? I think they're the same fighters. New weight class. So there is more vulnerability there when you talk about that. But I saw some layers to Vergil's game that people aren't commenting on. I think people are being a little too harsh, a little too harsh. But the perception can be everything. The perception now is he's vulnerable. The perception is he's too hittable. The perception is that this type of fighting, all fastball, balls to the wall, get in the chest and throw combination punches with bad intentions every punch, isn't going to work at this weight class the way it worked at 147. You're not going to be able to overwhelm fighters like that. You're too hittable for the likes of a Bud Crawford, maybe even, let's say, a Tim Tszyu or a Mel Charlo. And we'll see if it plays out that way. The thing with 154 is this, fellas. It's a grown man division. And we've said that for years about 154, but even more so now. The division that Mel consolidated was already a tough division full of good fighters. I didn't think there was a great fighter there. I didn't think there were any great fighters there. But it was a tough division full of guys fighting the fights, and they're good fighters. It's a deep division of good fighters. To me, now it's a deeper division full of better fighters at the top, more talented fighters at the top, a higher ceiling. And it's deep. And it's full of guys. It's a universal division. These fighters from the East, they don't care. They don't care. Look, fellas, look at what we got. Not only the fighters from the East, but look at the picture we got at 154 compared to where it was beginning of the year. The narrative was Tim Tszyu is going to go in there and beat Fedor. He's going to have 2 belts, right? What happens? He gets cut, yes, but that's part of the game, and he loses the fight. And they look largely unprepared for the cut. And Fedor wins the fight. Fedor didn't get the... Fedor doesn't care what you say about Tim Tszyu supposed to win this fight because Fedor's there to win, and he wins. And you look at Bud versus Majumov, and the narrative is we're going to talk about Canelo versus Bud or Bud versus Vergil, and Majumov's hearing this. He doesn't care. Majumov doesn't care that you had plans for Bud. He doesn't care. He doesn't get the memo. And he almost upsets Bud Crawford. Same this weekend. Bohachuk is hearing this stuff. Bohachuk is backstage. He's hearing Turkey Al-Sheikh with all of his arrogance talking about Bud versus Vergil, and Oscar's right there next to Turkey almost having an orgasm. We're going to make the best fights. Let's go. We're going to put them on the same card. And you know, Oscar's going to be saying something different 5 minutes later. And he doesn't care. You think Bohachuk's back there listening to that? He doesn't care. He doesn't get the memo that he's supposed to lose this fight. And it's the same thing. This trend will continue. Murtazeliev, he's supposed to lose to Tim Tszyu October 19th. They have plans for Tim Tszyu. They're already talking about 3-fight plans for Tim. Do you think Murtazeliev cares about that? He doesn't. And the trend is, and this is the type of division this is, these dudes don't care about your plans. They don't care about, look at 140. You think 140, look at the champions at 140. You think people thought the champions list was going to look like that at 140? The divisional rankings were going to look like that at 140? This is what happens in real divisions where fights are fought, fellas. We forgot about this as boxing fans because it's become a WWE sport where everything is carefully orchestrated for this guy to do this and that guy to do that. And when you actually put on the fights, these dudes, they don't care at 154. They do not care. Majumov doesn't care about your plans. Bohachuk doesn't care about your plans. Fedor doesn't care about your plans. Murtazeliev doesn't care about your plans. They're there to fight. They're fighters. And it's a fighter's division. It's why I love 154. You see, these dudes don't care about your little plans. They don't care about Bud versus Vergil and all this stuff. They're coming to wreck your plans. They're coming to win a fight. They're not here to lay down. And it's a division. It's a universal division full of fighters like that. It's Tim Tszyu coming back after a loss and saying, I'm going to fight this. These dudes don't care. A loss? So what? Let's get back. Fighters lose. Let's go. That's the temperament we should love, and this is a division we should love because it's a division full of fighters with temperaments like that. They're behaving like fighters. It's a lost art. Like, they're behaving like fighters. It's why I was shocked. Like as a boxing fan, I'm watching the fight of the year. And then I turn it on, it's round 5 of Angelo Leo Venato. And I'm watching, and I watch Angelo Leo bounce Venato's head off the canvas as a 5-1 underdog. I'm saying, man, what a sport. What a sport to deliver this tonight. These were fighters. These were fights. This is what it's about. And then I log on to Twitter and this guy's exposed. This was a robbery. This guy, even in a win, was exposed. His stock dropped. He's too hittable. He ain't ready for Bud. Imagine that. Like, imagine you see fight of the year and the first thing you go to is he ain't ready for Bud. He ain't ready for Bud. And that was a robbery anyway. These dudes are miserable, man. Like, we forgot how to behave as boxing fans. You just saw the fighting. You just saw two dudes destroying each other and laying it all on the line. And that's the first thing you went to? That's it? He ain't ready for Bud. Nobody's ready for Bud. Bud should just sit in Omaha and play ping pong or whatever he plays, pickleball, racquetball, or stare at a wall and not even worry about boxing anymore because nobody's ever ready for him. Nobody's ready for him. You get hit once, you ain't ready for Bud. Imagine if Bud hit you with that punch. It'd be over. Can we just enjoy a fight of the year and knockout of the year in the same night without complaining about something? Good Lord. For the love of God, man. You just saw two dudes trying to knock each other unconscious for 36 minutes straight. Throw almost 1,600 punches combined. With bad intentions, most of them, a high amount were, high percentage were power punches. But they get hit too much. They got hit way too much. They got hit way too much. We can't do that. You got hit way too much. No, can't do that. That's dumb. It's dumb to get hit. You can't do that. All right, so they can't throw a high percentage of power punches. They can't throw a lot of punches. What are we doing here then? What are we doing here? Every fight should be a Shakur fight then. But I'm telling you this. This division, man, we have no idea. And I'm interested to see. So the news is that Tim's going to fight. And look, more on this. Let me try to pull it up real quick. Let me see real quick. Let me try to share this. This was the news that dropped earlier. Let me share it. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. All right, let's see. Let's share this. Hopefully y'all see this good. And this is Tszyu versus Bakram Matazeliev, done as part of 3-fight plan. And notice 3-fight plan, not 3-fight deal. I'm just telling y'all to notice that. But Tszyu will challenge Bakram Matazeliev for his IBF super welterweight world title at venue in Florida. I'm assuming this is at the Caribe Royale. The Caribe Royale that was supposed to house Caleb Plant versus Maga McCullum, whatever that guy's name is. I forgot his name. So apparently they got an agreement. We clarified with the source, a second source close to Tszyu, and that source said everything was ready for October 19 in Florida. So I'm just throwing this out there as this is the reporting. This is coming from boxingnews.net. Alan Dawson, he broke this overnight. Now, we'll see. Nothing official yet. We'll see. And I also want to tell you, be hesitant on when you hear a 3-fight deal, 3-fight. Be hesitant on that, and we'll see as far as the venue. But Tszyu versus Matazeliev is happening. That fight's happening. That's for the IBF. It makes sense for both of them to fight each other. Matazeliev wants an opponent. He's not afraid of Tszyu. At Tszyu, what they value is titles. They want that title. They want to leverage it into other fights, right? And I'm assuming the game plan is for Tszyu to hopefully win this IBF title and then eventually face Sebastian Fundora and get 3 belts and leverage yourself into undisputed against possibly Bud Crawford. But the question I have, does Bud Crawford beat him to it? Does Bud Crawford fight a bigger name such as Vergil Ortiz, especially after this weekend, thinking he's too hittable, and we'll see how that works. And then in the meantime, let these other guys consolidate the belts, and then Bud can become undisputed after those guys consolidate the belts, whether it be Tszyu, Murtazeliev, or Fundora. And we'll see how that works out. I don't know. All I would tell you is this notion, this narrative coming out after the Vergil fight that Vergil's too hittable for Bud and Vergil can't beat Bud. I would tell you to be careful with that because styles do make styles make fights. Matchups make fights. I do think that Madrimov had a style that was tough for Bud. I do think that Bohachuk had a style that was tough for Vergil. I think they're both things in each other's games that they can give each other problems. And yes, I could see Bud getting to Vergil, obviously, because Vergil is hittable. He is. And Bud can punch. We know that. But Vergil's Vergil at the same time. And Vergil is going to get, Robert Garcia has already said the game plan it would be to go straight at Bud. And they would. He would go straight at Bud's neck. He would. And that would be interesting to me. Bud being known as a slow starter, Vergil trying to go for him early, Vergil getting in his chest, and then we have a firefight of a fight. I'm just telling y'all, man, if y'all are just skimming through that fight, like Bud, victory, no matter, I'm just telling y'all, be careful. Be careful. Let's see. These are the names. Crawford, Ortiz, Tszyu, Conwell, Bohachuk, Zayas, Fundora, Spence, Madrimov. I mean, you forget about Conwell, and then you forget, look, fellas, 2 to 3 years down the line, they're going to move Iriarte quick, and Iriarte can only make 147 so long. So you're going to have some names at 154, and then finally some of these guys are going to move up to 160, and middleweight becomes a good division again, because what a trash bucket division that is. Will Mel come back? He's another name to throw into that, right? Will Mel come back for another couple fights? Will Spence, will his eye allow him to come back? He's another name to throw in there. And then Boots. What's Boots going to do? Is Boots going to play the Golovkin role at 147, stick around, wait for guys to move up like Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, wait for guys with bigger names to move up to 147 as he tries to consolidate that division, consolidate titles, and conquer that division. If he does that, they got to get busier. You got to get busier if you're going to do that. You got to fight. You got to fight. You got to fight more than twice a year if you're going to do that game plan. Just telling you. You got to fight at least 3 times a year like Golovkin. Or will they move out of the JV division and move to the varsity division and move up to 154 via the Paul Williams route and go for the bigger fights right away? It's another thing to throw in there. So 154 is so deep that Tszyu's email champ of an opponent isn't even a Ring Magazine top 10 opponent. He's taking. Why you? What did Murtazeliev do to you, Chicano? What did he do to you? What is this? He's a good undefeated opponent. I'm telling you, he's not going to lay down. He's a good opponent, and you're right. He's not in the Ring Magazine top 10, but that is a deep division. It is. It's a deep division. And the trend here is these dudes do not care about your plans. They do not care about your A side versus A side plans down the road. They don't care. I don't give a damn about that. They do. They want to conquer that Caribe Royale. They want that venue badly. They want that venue badly for whatever reason. They want like no state taxes there. Can I be transparent? Can I be? We can speak freely here, right? Just speak freely. So this is the thing. This is the thing with Tszyu. Love him as a fighter. The dude will fight anybody, right? I think he's got a high ceiling. This is the thing that people need to. Okay. No Limit and PBC have a cozy relationship. We know that from talking to Glenn Jennings. They like each other. They like so from what I can pin down, the two immediate goals of Tszyu and his team is number one, become undisputed at 154. They really want the belts. And they really want to consolidate the belts. And they really want to be in title fight after title fight after title fight after title fight. So they want to consolidate belts. That's what we know. We know that about them. And let's throw three things in there. And they want to be active. So number two, they want activity. They've already said they want their dates and they don't want to come off their dates, and they have multi-fight plans all the time, a la Canelo in his heyday, right? They got multi-fight plans and they're transparent about it. But this is what they also want. And this is where it's not aligning to me. They've targeted the Mexican and Mexican American audience. That's their target audience. That's the target audience. That's who they're trying to go directly to the Mexican and Mexican American audience. They've got the Australian audience, right? And they've conditioned the Australian audience to watch them at a certain time of day in Australia to where it aligns with also targeting the American audience and watching it in primetime American television. So they've done the groundwork there. They've laid the groundwork. But where it's not landing thus far, is if you want to be a star in America, one thing I know is there is one, if you want to call them a promotional company, one outfit that is incapable of creating stars, and I've outlined why. They have a guy at the top, a promoter, advisor, man, whatever you want to call him, who can't promote. He literally can't promote because he can't call himself a promoter. He has to call himself an advisor. So it's a promotional company that masquerades as something else, and the guy at the top of it has to masquerade as something else and can't promote because he can't call himself a promoter. So he needs to hire a shell promoter who is a shell. He's a puppet. So one thing we know about puppet leaders, is they can't lead. And that's why they're puppet leaders. Because if they were real leaders, they would lead. And real leaders can't allow themselves to be a puppet of something. They can't. They can't do it. They just can't sit there and do it. So the puppet promoters are incapable of promoting as well. So these fighters have people around them who are incapable of promoting their careers. And generally speaking, they have weak managers around them who also have no control over their careers, because this guy at the top doesn't allow for anybody else around to have any type of control. He has to have all control, but he can't speak at the same time. And we can point out the obvious here. For whatever reason, I don't see anybody else talking about that, but the proof is in the end result. What stars have they created? And you can maybe throw out Tank's name. I would argue that he's not a star because he doesn't have any endorsement deals, real endorsement deals. So even if you throw out his name, I would argue he's a star despite that. He's a star in spite of the people around him, just because he is who he is. He's a fun, talented fighter who, like, you just watch him. It's like flashy and it's great. But if he is a star, it's in spite of the people around him. And what you have is Tszyu's team almost independently, like they're almost outsourcing these independent contractors of the PBC to run their career in the USA. And I think that's a bad move. I understand why they've done it up to this point, because at 154 it's been a heavy PBC division. I do respect the fact that guys like Canelo and Tszyu, when Turkey Al-Sheikh says something and tells them to do something and get in line, they tell them, go to hell, we got our own plans. I respect that. I do respect that. But at the same time, with Tszyu, unlike Canelo's at a point in his career where I don't need you. Like we've talked about that last week. Canelo's like, go somewhere else. Go to Saudi. Go back. I don't care. I don't need to talk to you. Tszyu's not at that point in his career. And if Tszyu does want to reach this Mexican and Mexican-American audience, he's going to have to be around people who can actually get him to that audience. And fighting in Florida on a weak PBC card is not going to do that. It's not going to do that. And we have to bring that up because that is I know that's one of their goals, is to reach that audience. That is their target audience, because they want to become stars in America. And the demographic in America that supports boxing with their dollars is the Mexican-American audience. That's the one. You're not going to get to them fighting at the Caribe Royale or wherever in Florida. You're not going to get to them that way. Some Cubans will show up, but you're not trying to reach the Cuban-American audience. You're trying to reach the audience in America. And there is the audience in America. There is the audience in America. It's the Mexican-American audience. And you typically get to them through the Southwest, through the West. You don't get to them on the Southeast. And there's a certain way you got to promote that. And I'm telling you, they're not going to promote this card. It's embarrassing watching Premier Boxing Champions on Twitter trying to promote these fighters, because they'll tweet something, they'll promote a fighter, and it'll get like 1 like per minute. I'm watching this. Like, go on Twitter right now and look at Premier Boxing Champions Twitter feed. Like, look, fellas, like, I'm not just saying this. Some of my tweets get more engagement than their tweets, and they're Premier Boxing Champions. They're not capable of promoting these fighters the way they need to be promoted. So it doesn't need to be. And look, the Saudis have their own issues in America. And we saw flashes of that in LA, to where they don't really understand who they're marketing to. Even with all the money involved, they don't really understand the American market. And I tweeted this earlier. Another way I know this is they're putting this Saudi card in Riyadh October 12th, and it's going up. This is one of the biggest college football weekends of the year, college football days of the year. You got some monster games. And if you're going to try to put that on pay-per-view, and if you're going to try to put it in the middle of the day, good luck. Good luck. Dudes know this. Women don't know this, unfortunately, is you don't schedule fall weddings, because dudes do not want to go to fall weddings. They don't want to go to a wedding on Saturday when Texas versus Oklahoma is on, LSU versus Ole Miss, USC versus UCLA, whatever. They don't want to do that. Women don't get that memo. October 12th, this year, 2024, is the 5th busiest day of the year when it comes to weddings. Women don't get the memo. Women don't care. They don't care. We're not worried about your college football. You're going to show up at my wedding. You're going to have to watch it on your little phone. And men, we know, happy wife, happy life. Yeah, I got to show up. I'm going to have to watch this on my phone. It is what it is. I know this because guess where I'll be October 12th? I'll be in Houston, Texas at my sister-in-law's wedding. They don't care. They don't care. But they don't have to make money. They just need people to show up one day for their wedding. The Saudis need American eyeballs on their product. And they're going to have to understand that if you try to put a main event with two Russians, I don't care if it's for undisputed, all the titles, whatever, top 10 pound for pound, you're going up against LSU versus Ole Miss. You're going up against Texas versus Oklahoma, second half. Good luck. My point being, you have, when it comes to America, still to this day, a dwindling audience. It gets smaller, smaller. Each year it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And the Saudi goal has to be not only to stop the bleeding, with the amount of money they're pumping into the product, it has to be not only to stop the bleeding, but to grow the sport significantly in a short period of time. And they're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to do it the way they're doing it. And with Tszyu, you have a window in your career. And he's still young. He's in his prime. But you have a window that you have to get to the American audience. You have to get to the Mexican-American audience. And if you're going to be doing that, the sad reality of this is, as much as I want it to be this way, you can't just get to them by fighting the fights. You can't. There are other things that you need. There are other ingredients into this whole pot that you need to put into it. You need people who are organically, they're intrigued by what's going on with you on a personal level. Once again, I need to speak freely here. I look at Tszyu's social media and it's lacking. I look at Tszyu's social media on Twitter. He doesn't have a check. He tweets something, a couple hundred people may retweet it, like it. I see him on Instagram and I say, that guy should have way more followers. He should be posting way more. You need people, and people are going to like me saying this, but you need people to be interested in you. Not necessarily who you're fighting with. They just need to be looking for you. They need to be looking for you. And right now, our Mexican Americans, his target audience, are they looking for Tszyu? Do you think? And I know they're training. They train in Vegas. They train in LA. They train where they need to be training. Are they fighting there? They fought in Vegas just now, but they're back in Florida. And do they have the right people guiding their career in America? Oscar's still the best at it, fellas, in that market. If you need somebody who needs to get you to the Mexican-American audience, Oscar's the guy to do it. He understands that market better than anybody in the sport. Anybody in the sport. So once again, my question to Tszyu's team, and I've asked it a handful of times, are you willing to deal with other people in America that you haven't been dealing with up until this point? Are you going to show a loyalty to a group of people who, I don't know, man, like, are they producing? Are they producing for you where you want to produce? I just don't think, I don't know if Tszyu can get to that target audience dealing with the people he's been dealing with in America. Look, fellas, take Stephen Fulton Jr. And I'm beside myself last week. I see Stephen Fulton Jr. tweet out that he tweets out that they don't even have me on the pay-per-view card. They've got me on the card before the card. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Steven, how many times have we told you this? Like, you shouldn't be over there. Why are you over there? And you say this stuff and you're a racist, right? And for years you say this stuff and it's obvious. It's like right there. Like we see it. We all see it. Like you shouldn't be over there. Why are you over there? They got you fighting in Minnesota And you're doing $51,000 live gigs because everybody's getting in for free, and they're talking about what a great venue. This is the best venue in Boston. I'm sure it's a great venue, but everybody's getting in for free. So maybe he should be fighting somewhere else. Maybe a Philly fighter should be fighting in Philly. I don't know. Or maybe not. And you see years and years and years of this. Incompetence, negligence. And then one day you see a dude pop on Twitter and say, it's been 14 months since I fought. And I'm not even fighting on the real undercard. I'm fighting on the undercard of the undercard. This was a dude that was flirting with top 10 pound for pound before the NOA fight. And it's sad to see, but it shouldn't have come to this. And it's so easy to see, though. It's so easy to see, but you say it, and people are like, no, they understand what they're doing, and this is a science, and, stop just hating on PBC. You must just hate Al Heyman because he's black or whatever, right? It's like, no, I want this guy to fight, maybe in Philadelphia, and I want him to fight more than once per year because he's one of the best fighters in the sport. And I love the lower weight classes, so I'd love to see lower weight classes fighters be popular who are good to great fighters. And then one day, a dude pops up and says, I'm on the undercard of the undercard. And you're like, yeah, maybe you deserve it. You're fighting underneath Rolando Romero. Do y'all understand that? Stephen Fulton Jr. is fighting underneath. He's fighting multiple fights before Rolando Romero on the same card. It's like, bro, we tried to tell you. I don't know. Like, we tried to tell you that stuff like this could happen if you're over there doing that. And you've been over there doing that. And here we are. Here we are. And after you fight this fight, it's probably 14 months till you fight again. And 10 years from now, nobody's going to remember Stephen Fulton Jr. existed. That's the sad part about this. It's the sad part. I got nothing against Minnesota. It's just like, that's not where fights belong. Tszyu needs to stop calling himself a throwback fighter while trying to take on the likes of a washed up Keith Thurman. Chicago, do you not like Tszyu? I don't know. Speak freely. Speak freely about it, because there's no wrong answer. And I'm open about this. I don't like Tszyu. To me is a throwback fighter. I like how he moves, but there are things they should be doing differently. There are things they should be doing differently as far as the business side of things from my vantage point. And there's danger that 5 years from now, they could be looking back at this and saying, we should have surrounded ourselves by different people surround ourselves with different people in America while we had the opportunity. That's what I'll say. Mbilli versus Derevyanchenko. Sneaky good main event this weekend. Mbilli is a guy at 168 who is the top contender at 168 to Canelo right now, according to Ring Magazine. So we've got the fake monsters that moved up, Benavidez and Morrell Jr. They both moved up, right? They both go up to 175 and look fairly average in their first fights at 175, if we're being honest. And on top of that, so 168, there's just not much there. It is a weak division. 168 currently is a weak division. As you've had Benavidez and Morrell Jr. move up, Mbilli and Pacheco aren't quite there yet. And then you've got a guy like Berlanga, who is number 7 contender in the weight class. And to me, that shows how weak the weight class is, that you have Berlanga in the top 10. Weak division. But Mbilli, this could be a coming out party of sorts. He's on ESPN. That's number one. So he's going to have more eyeballs on him. He is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. Very exciting fighter. He's a minus 430 favorite against Derevyanchenko. And this is a spot that Derevyanchenko has been in multiple times. So look at Derevyanchenko's losses. He's had a handful of them, 15-5. They have two things in common. Number one, he's lost them all by decision. He hasn't been knocked out. That's intriguing in itself because you got Mbilli who knocks people out. And you got Derevyanchenko who does not get knocked out. Look at his losses. Munguia, Adames, Charlo, Golovkin, Danny Jacobs. That's his 5 losses. So there's a trend here. And the trend is he steps up and he's the ultimate barometer fighter in boxing right now. He is the gatekeeper in his weight class. And he's the ultimate gatekeeper. If you pull up gatekeeper, his face will be next to it. He's the ultimate fighter that you see, you offer your fighter resistance and see if they can get past Derevyanchenko. If they get past Derevyanchenko, they're a good fighter. And they're ready for the next level. But at the same time, he's a tough luck opponent. He's a tough luck fighter because all of these losses were close. They were all close decisions. The Munguia fight, razor close. Many people thought Derevyanchenko won the fight. Danny Jacobs, the same thing. Golovkin, you got people out there that think Derevyanchenko beat Golovkin. Adames, same thing, another close fight. And the Charlo fight was even closer than the scorecards, although Charlo, out of all those fighters, probably had, weirdly, the most comfortable decision out of all 5 of those guys. Those are all good to really good fighters who beat Derevyanchenko, but all close. Derevyanchenko was right there with those guys. Right there. And JC is Mexicans for everybody. Mexicans for Tim, Mexicans for Mbilli, Mexicans for, right? Mexicans for Mbilli. And the intriguing thing about this fight is it's not a gimme for Mbilli at all. It's not. Derevyanchenko does not get knocked out, and Mbilli likes to knock guys out. So will his fight go the distance? Yes, is in minus territory, minus 190. So it's more likely to go to decision than not, according to betting odds. The over-under is 8.5 rounds, with the over being in the minus territory and under being in the positive territory. So this is not an easy fight. It's another fight in which people are moving Mbilli right past it and looking to the future and looking at, man, if this guy can put on a great performance on ESPN with Benavidez already moving up, possible opponent for Canelo down the line, and Mbilli, Mbilli, once again, if he does win, will be calling out Canelo because that's what guys do, right? We're in around 168. You're going to call out Canelo. They want to do that. But Derevyanchenko, once again, he's not going to get that memo. He's not going to understand that. He's not going to understand. He doesn't. He's a guy. He does not understand the B-side role. And I got to come out here and just. That's not what Derevyanchenko does. Derevyanchenko is there to win. He's there to win. And he keeps getting these fights. And there comes a point where you put him in and he's going to mess around and win if you keep giving him these opportunities. And I really am surprised that he's getting another opportunity because once again, you give him enough opportunities, he's going to break through. Danny Jacobs, close. Golovkin, close. Charlo, close. Adames, close. Munguia, close. He's been close a handful of times. Is Mbilli as good as those guys? Does Derevyanchenko still have enough left in the tank after those tough fights? He's getting up there in age a little bit. These are all question marks, and I don't really know. Like I think it's going decision. I think Mbilli's going decision, and I want to see how Mbilli handles 12 rounds of having a tough opponent in front of him. A guy who is not going to be intimidated at all by the output and the power. And we're going to have ourselves a fight. And it's going to continue this trend of the opponent not getting the memo. I don't care about your B-side, like whatever. Bohachuk didn't care. Angelo Leo didn't care. Madrimov didn't care. Fundora against Tszyu didn't care. These guys don't care. They're not in awe of your A side. They're not in awe of it. And the more we see these fights, these type of fights at a higher clip, the more upsets or possible upsets we're going to see. And I'm not making a prediction on this. I'll be playing live betting odds. I may even put a little down on Derevyanchenko at plus 310. Just a little bit. And I think this is going decision. So I'm going to put a little down on the decision. So JC's the one who should be running these guys' careers. He's got better ideas. He's got better ideas than the promoters. And Paulo wants to know if y'all are doing Mexicans for Berlangas. Will they wear makeup? So that's all I got, man. And I will I'll be closely watching this Mbilli fight this weekend. And I'll be available on Twitter this week as I'm out in Florida vacationing. So y'all have a great rest of the week. God bless. Peace.